So enough for myself and exploratory. So let's get into the main piece of today's session. So we're going to get into this like a data wrangling side of things. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the date and time data wrangling. So it actually turned out like by many times like you import that data, the data is not ready because of this like a date time data was not correct or not correctly formatted. But once you make that as a proper format, then you can do a lot of interesting stuff. So that's why we think this is very important and it's pretty cool stuff. So to demonstrate though, I'm gonna use user activity data. Each already presents the user access to like a fictional online service. Think of it as like a Facebook or Twitter or like a mobile app or whatever that is. It's kind of like a log file. And then there are a couple of columns, and I'm going to describe that later. And then after this session, I'm going to share the PDF for this. I'm going to share the slides, and then there's a link you can go, and then you can download that EDF and import that as well for your so that you can do the hands-on. Okay, so here's the data. So the most left-hand side, the timestamp, that's actually the main piece of the today's content. And then like other stuff are more like attributes, like what are the OS, what is the user ID, what is the event type, and the IP address, and so on. Okay, and then the typical thing is like, hey, like what is the duration of this data? This is from 2016, or this is from like the last 2 years. What are the duration of it? Or what is a DAU, daily active users, like has been changed over time? Is that like increasing or not, or decreasing? Or maybe like you might want to ask like, hey, which day of the week or the hours are more active? Like it's a Monday, people are more accessing to this service, or like a particular day of the time, like people particular hours of the time people are accessing, and so on. Let me see. There's some chat window. Audio isn't working. Audio isn't working. Let me see. You can't hear me? Ooh, okay. It is working for me. Okay. So maybe some folks not working, some folks working. As long as somebody could listen, that means I think there's somebody you might want to reconnect, then sometimes the audio come back in again. So you might want to just disconnect from the Zoom and then reconnect. Sometimes that works as well. Okay, so Gustavo is working for you. Okay, great, thank you. And so let's keep going. And this is recorded. So for some reason it doesn't work, then you can actually download that later. Not download, we're gonna upload this to YouTube so you can take a look at that later as well. Okay, so let's keep going. So here's a data. So the problem though is that like the first column, the timestamp column, is the data type is character. You see like kind of a little icon right underneath the column header name. And then when you go to the summary view, and then you see kind of like a boring data summary information there, because it's considered, is registered as a character. But character data type and a date or time data type are different, and then that makes a huge difference actually. So if it's that data is registered as a character, so let's say when you import the data in exploratory, then if it's registered as a character, it looks like this. But if it's correctly registered as a date and time data type, then you would see the histogram like this. This will give you the idea of like the duration right away. And also, like you can see because of the histogram, like what, where the more data is accumulated in what particular section of the day or the period. So, and also when you go to the chart, this is what happened. Like if you don't take care of converting or like converting the column in the right way, then if you just assign the character data type and then you assume that, hey, like, hey, this is a time axis and what's going on. But what happened is basically x-axis is, in this case, a character data type. And then when you look at the chart x-axis at the bottom, then all those values are considered as just a character. And so there's no order between, there's no spacing between. It just becomes like each day is a unique value basically. So but if it's converted or registered as a date and time data type, then it will when you look at the x-axis of the chart, you see the spacing, or you honor the duration or like interval with the period, and also sorted, all the data sorted correctly because those are the date and time. So it's more like an intuitive way of understanding the data. And also in the chart, the x-axis, when you pull down the drop down, you see you can do a lot of like different type of kind of aggregation. You can change to like year level, you can change to month level, or you can even like extract just like a quarter or a month or day or week and so on. So you can do a lot of things. So in exploratory, more precisely though, this is in R, because exploratory is a UI for R, so like we basically like use exact the same data type. So in R or exploratory, whatever that is, there are two data types around the date and time. One is called date, and another one is called project CT. And the difference is it's very simple. The date contains only date information. Project CT contains both date and time. Project CT, that last two letters CT, that means calendar time. So it's like if you kind of forgot what that is, it's like I just think about like CT as a calendar time, therefore there's a time component in it. Okay, so the key here is by making it to date and time data type, then you can do a lot of cool things. It helps you to understand the data much better. So that's basically the first thing I recommend to do. Whenever like you see that it's supposed to be the date and time, but somehow register as a character, that's where you want to start converting to it. Then you can start asking a lot of questions and the answer is much easier way. So let's do that, converting the character data type to date and time data type. In exploratory, it's pretty simple. You can just click on the column header menu. And then the first thing you're going to see is the change data type, because you want to change the data type from character to, in this case, a project CT, because there's a time component in that data. So you want to select the convert to date time in the submenu, and then eventually you want to select the year, month, day, hour, minute, second, because the data, the text data in here contains all these 6 components, right? So, and it also, it matters how the order of those each component. So in this case, the order is like year, month, day, hour, minute, second. But if that data happen to be starting from like a month, day, year, then you want to select something else. Okay, then this will populate the function called HMD underscore HMS. Sorry, YMD underscore HMS. That's the name of the function. It's very simple because that year, month, day, hour, minute, second, all of them, basically we take the initial, and then that becomes the function name. So for example, in this case, we have the data, look at the right-hand side, which has a 2017, 0101, and 08, which is like an hour, and then 10 minutes, and then 10 seconds, right? And then this one, basically, the order is important here, is that like a YMD HMS. So that's why like we want to use the function called YMD underscore HMS in this case. If the data contains only the time element without the time, the date element, date components without time components, then like you want to use just YMD. And then the cool thing about these functions is that it doesn't matter what are the characters between. So for example, if the first one is 2015-10-01, next one is a slash. And then the third one is like you have like even like alphabet in between, but it can actually parse it as long as the order is specified. Then like you can get you can convert that correctly, appropriately. And then like if the data contains HMS, hour, minute, second piece, then you want to use underscore HMS function. So if those again. Those components of the date and time are not ordered in the YMD, then what's going to do? Well, there's a function for that. So for example, in this case, if your data is like MDY order, month, day, year, then like you just use MDY function. Same thing if that even contain, for example, like a time element, then like you use underscore HMS. Okay. And then here, though, actually the third example is actually kind of wrong because it started MDY underscore HMS, then like it's assuming there will be a time component there. So I have to fix this slide. Okay, so let's do this quickly. I'm gonna, I already imported, so like here's activities. And by the way, I shared it, this data here, this URL. You can actually take a look at that slide after this session. Then when you go to this slide, and then, sorry, to page, and then you just download this EDF. So once you download the EDF, then you can import that EDF from here, this menu. And then, but this one, that originally the CSV file, I just created it. I just imported it. Okay. So what we want to do is here, the timestamp column. This is like a character, and there's not much information we can grab from, gain from here. So that's why like, we want to actually convert. You can do this either way from summary view or table view. You can just click on the column header menu, change data type, and convert to date and time. And then again, here it's basically that we just look at here, it's like a YMD HMS. So, sorry, yeah. And then, so that's all we need to do. So you find a year, month, day, and then hour, minute, second, this one. And select that, and then like we get YMD underscore HMS function. And then just create, you want to convert it. We want to overwrite this. We can create a new column, but there's no point of keeping this original one. So I'm going to overwrite it. So click on run button, and then we get the second step. And then this column is nicely converted. So we can see like, okay, this data is from 2016, November 1st to 2017, June 25, right? And once we get this, then it's actually go to the chart view, and then, for example, like a bar chart, and then you want to assign the column. But here is a timestamp is still A. A means character, and that's because I think I opened this chart view before. So like the step is pinned to the first step before the data wrangling step, right? So I'm going to move this pin to the second one. Then like, I'm going to see that converted. So now like, I see like, kind of like a calendar icon. That means a date and time as a project city. So I'm going to select that. And then first I see like a yearly aggregated. But I want to change that to, for example, monthly aggregated, or month aggregated, or maybe like week aggregated. And or the cool thing is I can even extract some of the information. So for example, like I want to see by, let's say like by, which day of the week we have more access. Then like I can actually extract that thing. So like the first section here is more like what level you want to aggregate the data to. And the second section is like just extract the component of that date. Okay. So that's pretty simple. Hope this is simple so far. Then second one is the extract. I actually already did this, so I'm gonna kind of go quickly because this is nothing magic about it. Basically, when you have some data like this, like 2017, 06, 24, this actually contains a lot of information. And for example, this June, right, the 06 means like this is actually June. And then 24 is like a 24th of the month. Or if you focus on, if you care about the year, this is actually 175th day in 2017. And also this day happened to be Saturday, right? And then, there are other information too. For example, this is second quarter, or, so you can extract a lot of information from this just 2017-06-24. So we want to, and the time is also same thing. It can be like, oh, this is not just like, 8 hours, 10 minutes, 10 seconds, but also that's 8 hours, hours of 8. And also this is like a morning, right? So like you can get a lot of information from here as well. So we want to extract. So in order to, let's say like extract month information, there's a function called month. You want to extract the year part of it, you just type year, use year function. And also there's another function called W day. So if you want to extract the day of week, so that is the first initial W means week. So you can use W day function to do it. And then, but you don't have to remember those function name. You can actually access to those functions through the column via column header menu. So let's try. Let's quickly do that. So here we got, now that we have like a project city, and this menu, we see like extract, around, and rollback, that kind of stuff. If you didn't convert, you don't see this type of the menu, because that it can't work on the character data type. So because we converted, then now we can do a lot of different things. So here under the column header menu, the extract, then what information we should extract. So let's do month, and a month short name, a long name. Let's do the short name. And then this function called months, but has a couple of arguments. Right? If you care, see more detail, you can always click on this short document as when the cursor is inside a function. So if I click on the short document, you can see more detail on here. But let me just explain here. Is a label equal true? That means instead of 1, 2, 3, it becomes January, February, March. It's more like kind of you want to see in the text. And abbreviation equal true, that means it's abbreviate. So like instead of January, it becomes J and Jan. But if you make this false, then it becomes January. So you have some little control here. And here, like, I don't want to overwrite because there are a lot of information here. I don't want to lose all the information just because by converting the months. So I'm going to create a new column, and then call it like timestamp months, or whatever that name is. I'm going to just keep it this way, and then create run, and then like we get this new column. And then look at this here. It says F icon and an ordered factor. And what this means is when you go to the summary view here, this data is not actually the character, even though it's a January, February, March. It looks like a character data, but it's actually something called factor. And if you're familiar with exploratory or R, then you might recognize this factor. But the factor is just a nutshell. It is a categorical data type that has an order information in it, or level information along with it. So for example, in this data, January, February, March, we intuitively, naturally understand like February should come after January, but it come before March. So you never want to sort this data. I mean, like sometimes you might want to, but most of the time, like you expect this to be sorted this particular order. So in R, by using the factor data type, you can actually set those type of the order. In this case, it's obvious, but for example, if you have your team and then you have like a certain order, you want to line up the people's name, even though like they don't align with the alphabetical order, then you can create that as well. So, and then if you have something like this order factor, then like if the number of levels is a 12, and the base level means like whatever the first one, the Jan. And then like you go to the chart, and I'm going to just create a new chart, and then I select the bar chart, and then I'm going to assign this like timestamp months, the column we just created, and then it respects, because this is a factor, so it respects that order that has embedded it in the column itself. But one thing though is that, so this, if you know how to extract this this type of information, months or day of week, whatever that is, it gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of like transforming your data. But if you just want to do something like this, hey, I just want to see which months we have more people kind of stuff, then you don't actually even have to do it. You can just do the same thing from the chart itself. So what I mean by that is, if I had a bar chart, and then as long as the column is a project city, is a date and time data type, then from this drop down, like I said, like the second section is the extract section. So I can just select like a month's short name, and then like I get like January, February, March already. And say, so you can actually do that. As long as you care about just visualizing the data, you can do so. If you care about something more like, you use that data to later stage, like machine learning or statistical algorithms side of things, then you might want to extract this data, then you can use that as a data. Okay, so that's extract. And the next one I like to touch is a filter. Okay, and once so date and time data type is very unique. It's different from number or character or other data type. So therefore, the kind of thing you can do with filter is slightly different as well. So first, there's some kind of concept called like relative and absolute. What that means, like relative date, meaning, for example, you might want to say, hey, previous year, or like last year, or next year, or this year, or you might want to say, hey, last 3 years, or you might want to say year to date, right? Just for that year. And it's the same thing for the months and the day and then all other stuff. But this relative day is sort of like based on today. So if you ask this question, for example, like 2 months later or 3 months later, or next year, and then this the data might be different. Like if I'm talking about previous year now, then previous year is actually 2018. But if I run this report last year, then the previous year actually the year before. So it depends like when you actually do this operation, the amount of data will be returned should be different. And those are like a relative date. So for example, here, let's say today, and then last 2 years, or previous year, this year, year to date, and it all different based on when you run this report or when you run this analysis, right? And the absolute date is sort of like you fix it. So for example, like I want to say like, today, the January 8th, 2019, and then I want to see the particular data. And then, maybe like older than that or later than that and so on. So that's that difference. So even though today is January, whatever the day today is, but if I can specify, let's say like, year is greater than 2016 or year is equal to 2017 and so on. Okay. And then like, you can actually do those things from the column header menu and the filter. So this is pretty simple stuff. So I'm going to just quickly show, but I'm not going to really do it. So here, if you like to go to the column header menu, the filter, and then like you have the relative date option or all sorts of different types of things. If you select the relative date, let's say this data, I'm not sure this has like this is like a kind of old 2017 is June 25 is the latest. But let's say like if I want to say, last year, then like I can say relative date year. And then like a filter operator is like a relative date selected. And then like I can say, for example, previous year or this year and so on. Okay. And then like if you want to say, hey, you know what, like I want to specify a particular date, then I can actually set like a particular date, let's say 2017-01-01, or I can actually say like, hey, just give me all Monday data. Then like I can just do like a day, a week or something as well. Okay, so that's a filter. It's pretty simple. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But let's go to the next one, the duration. Okay. The duration is interesting, and it's pretty common, like you see. Basically, what it is like, hey, if this, how long this user has been using this service, for example. This is like an access log, right? So let's say like this user came the first time, like he accessed is like 2 weeks ago, and then so okay, this person is using two weeks. So to do it, basically, like what you want to do is sort of like a kind of last day minus first day, and that's what you want to do. And then you can see like sort of like a lifetime or duration that each user is using this product or service, right? So let's say like you have each user ID, and then like you can get like first date and then last day, and then like once you get this data, then like you just do minus, and when you do the minus, what happens is in R, it creates the new data type called diff time. And this is slightly different from like numeric data type because it is very particular to the difference in time. And then also the unit, for example, the first row is you see like 8229928. And then the unit of that number is based on if the data type or original data type was like a POSIX city or date. If it's a date data type, then like you do like a date minus date, then becomes this diff time, but the unit is actually the day, so how many days. But in this case, POSIX CT, so it has the lowest unit here is like a second. So the diff time or the result of the calculation becomes using the second as a unit. Okay, then so if it's diff time, it's actually not really easy to use data type. Like you want to actually change that to numeric, right? And then you can do all sorts of different calculations. So, and you can do it by using something called as.numeric function. And then you can set like what is the unit. So let's say you want to actually convert to days, you want to convert to weeks, you want to convert to minutes, and so on. Okay. And then once you do that, then you can basically use that information as just another regular numeric data type. So let's do here. But one thing though here is that like user ID, look at here, we have like 2,885 unique value. That means we have this many users. But the number of the rows is we have like 159,000 rows. So that means there are a lot of records that are actually used by the same user. So like, you know, just imagine like people access to your service or the product, and, you know, probably many times in the last year. So so each row represents each access, not the user here. So like what we want to do is basically like we want to aggregate this data by user, so that like the end result will have like each user has each own row, and then but also we can get like the oldest like earliest date and also the latest date for each user. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly do that aggregation. So like a group by the user ID, and then basically now like this each color represent each user. And then what we want to do is basically we want to get like a first day and the last day for each user. Then like eventually we can do the calculation, like minus calculation. Then like we can get a duration for each user, like how long this user has been using this product, right? So to do, I'm going to just select the timestamp column and then summarize. And then I want to see the first, or actually mean or max is better. The difference between a mean, max, and first, last is like first is, it doesn't matter if the value is bigger or smaller. It just take like whatever the first one in the row, whatever the last in the group. And the mean, max is actually respect that date information or the time information. So even though the sorting, these data are not sorted, but actually find the minimum value in the time concept. So I'm going to select the mean and then summarize and then like aggregate function and timestamp mean. And I'm going to just say like, hey, timestamp is like a fast access. And then I get only this column, like I want to do another calculation. So use a timestamp, and then I want to use a max and timestamp. And then here is like a last. Then I get like a first and last. And then like all the other columns gone because we just did the summarization. So I'm going to bring, let's say, I can keep bringing all the stuff, but let's keep whatever the, just always information. So we got this much information. I don't know, there's a lot of NA, but let's ignore that for now. And then next thing we can do is basically we want to subtract first day from the last day so that we can calculate the duration. So let's do that. And then here, I'm going to select last, and then where is, here, the mutate create calculation. The create calculation is basically to do the calculation for each row, right, one by one. And then so here minus and timestamp underscore first. And I'm going to call it like duration and create a new column and click run. And then like this number is being calculated. But again, here is a diff time. There's a data type. And then I want to actually convert to regular numeric data type. So to do that, click column header menu and then change data type and convert to number. convert to numeric. And underneath their submenu, I'm going to just change it to like days. So like I want to see like how many days each users are on this service. Then here's a unit, and it says days. And this you can change to weeks or minutes and so on. But here's I'm going to keep it days. And then now here I get 95.253, whatever. And then if you don't like this like a decimal digit, you could do is you can go work with numeric function underneath the round function or floor or seating function. So you can do some kind of rounding as well. Okay, so I'm going to keep it for now. Here's the duration. That's all we wanted. Okay, now speaking of round, the round I was talking about was against a numeric. I was talking about how much decimal digit do we want to keep or not, right? But there's also the round you can do for date and time. So what that means? Well, so for example, like when you have the time information, like not necessarily like you care about the time, but like you want to actually aggregate the data to like a day level. Same thing for you might want to aggregate the data to like week or month level. And that's where like this rounding comes in picture. Okay, so what that means is in the chart, you can actually do these things actually. So for example, when you go to the chart view, and then here, it says floor. So the data is actually, even though data contains this time information, but not necessarily like I want to see that detail of the information. So for example, I can do like, let's say like an hour, but that would be too much, right? So I want to actually aggregate to, let's say like a day level, right? So this is basically what we are doing is we are rounding that data, but precisely we are floating the data. So what is floating and then rounding the seating thing? So there behind the scene in R, there's a round underscore date or seating underscore date, floor underscore date. These functional code. In the chart, we're actually using floor underscore date. But these are the three different type of rounding, right? So so the difference here is a round is very similar to number. Okay, so so for example, let's give an example, 2017, June 25, right? And if you see in the calendar, what's this at? 25, June 25, right? And June 25, if you round it, and then that means week start from Sunday to Saturday. So this one is basically greater than like a kind of between. It's like a Wednesday. Border is on the Wednesday noon, and it's actually considered as a kind of a greater size. So it becomes what are we doing here? It's a week. So the week wise is actually considered as a next week. This is like a 25. But if you do the seating, no matter what, you always kind of like up. So like if you have like a 18 or 19 or 20, all these dates becomes the next one, which is actually 25. Okay, and if you do the floor, so the floor is like a bottom, right? So if you do that, then all these dates becomes 18. Okay, so that's the difference. It's pretty much similar to the kind of the concept when you do the rounding for the number. Okay, and you can actually do what I was actually doing is from the chart. Most of the time, like I'm finding like this chart is good enough, but sometimes if you sometimes you have to actually do to calculate, for example, like DAU and MAU, and you want to do some kind of division to calculate engagement rate or something like that, then you might actually have to do it. To do, click on the column header menu, and then there's a round. And then from here, you can select the options. Let's say like you want to do the floor, and I want to do like a month. And then this populate floor underscore date function. And here, the second argument is basically the one it's doing what level you want to floor it to. So like in this case, months. And I can change that to week, and either way. If I do the months, and I don't want to overwrite, I'm going to create a new column, and then this time stamp, and then months floor, and then like you get, for example, this guy, and this is like I round a floor to months, so it's only like a March, but the other component here becomes either 01 or 00. So day level is that becomes 01, and then the time level becomes 0. Okay, so that's rounding. Here, what's going on here? Here, okay. And then today's last topic is a time zone. And this topic, it's actually, it's kind of a minor topic, but at the same time, everybody actually, anybody using time have to really think about this, but not well talked about. And I think it's actually pretty simple once you get around this, and you can do a lot of things around here as well. So time zone, right? So I live in California, and therefore we do use a Pacific time zone, which is 3 hours behind the Eastern time zone, which, you know, if in case like you live in the East Coast, or like you live in Europe and then you have multiple different time zones, and Asia has its own time zone. But the data you receive, sometimes it doesn't mean it's you in your time zone, like it's somebody else's time zone, or maybe something kind of like a UTC, or, you know, some standard time zone around the London time, right? So like you gotta be careful, like when you have the data, what is the time zone of the data. To demonstrate though, instead of using the slides, yeah, let's keep using the slides. Okay. Oh, I'm going to just right into the demo here. I think that's easy to see. So in order to demonstrate this time zone concept thing, I want to use weather data. And you can actually download the weather data pretty easy. So there's something called extension data. Extension data means like sometimes you can actually create your extension data by writing R script. And then if you're interested, let me know. Or there's a document under the docs, export.io. But also, anyway, so you can create your own data source, or we periodically publish custom data source as well. So if you're interested in go, extension, and then go to the add new, and you find some of the extension data source. Once you install it, and then you can click on this import data. So today, I want to use this weather data. Click on import data. And then here, there's a station ID. For example, it's basically like airport ID, think of it. So like, for example, San Francisco, I can type SFO. Well, if you're not sure, then what you can do is click on this question mark, and then this will open the help to find the station ID for the location that you're interested in. Okay, so you can actually type, and then like you can type like start day and end day, and then you can get all the weather information. But it takes a little time, like for this particular demo. So like I already downloaded it beforehand. So like I downloaded here the SF4 data. Okay, so it has like a longitude, latitude, which is not interesting because, you know, like the location is SF4 anyway. But it has a valid, which has a date information, project city, so it contains the time information as well. And also here, the temperature F means the Fahrenheit. And also something else, like for example, humidity related information, and as and wind gas, and then so on. So let's take a look at this data. I select a line chart, and then assign a valid, which is like a project city column, and assign a temperature F, like so temperature, so there's a Fahrenheit. And then like I actually, for example, like you might want to see the data like this. This is like an average temperature by weekly, right? And it's starting from 2015 to, what today is it? 2019, basically today or yesterday. Yeah. But also here, let's say like we want to see hour by the hour. Oh, no, I just aggregated by the hour. Instead, I want to actually extract the hour. We just covered that today. So let's say here, the start from the bottom, And then this is like a hourly. So x-axis from 0 to probably 23, right? And then like what day of the time is, the temperature increase or decrease. Okay. So when you look at it here, I'm going to just double click this white area to just kind of like zoom in. Then now start from 54 to like 64, 65, maybe 65. Yeah. Then the highest temperature in the day is actually 21. 21 means like 9 p.m. at the night time. And which is obviously San Francisco has a very funky weather. It's cold summer and then moderate winter. But even then, it's like a highest temperature of the day is 9 o'clock p.m., which is kind of weird. And then coldest day of the day is actually like around 11 noon. So this is something very weird. But we know that like when you go to the table view, here it says UTC. So basically, we are looking at San Francisco's temperature, weather data in UTC. So it's actually, when you think of it, it's like UTC kind of makes sense because it's like 9 hours behind UTC. UTC is the time zone of the London or the UK, or along that line, or the Spain, and then along that line. But this kind of makes it hard for us, like living in San Francisco or California. So we want to actually change this, right? So we want to actually convert this to Pacific time zone. Then we can start saying like, okay, like what time of the day is actually the highest temperature, or what time we can start talking about something like this. So to do, what we can do is basically go to the column header menu. And then at the last, it says replace field convert data. There's a convert time zone menu. And click on that. And this will give us like with_TZ time zone. And then you can set time zone of your interest. And this is basically going to convert from UTC time zone to whatever the time zone you're interested in. So I want to change that to like Pacific time zone. And then Pacific time zone is actually America, Los Angeles. When you click run button, and then now here you see the PST, that means the Pacific Standard Time. And then when I go to the chart, and then like I still don't see that fix because again the pin, it's like the pin is still pointing to the first step. I want to move this pin to the second step to reflect that change. Then now if I double click, the highest temperature of the day is around 2 p.m. This is seems to be right. And the coldest time of the day is actually 5 a.m. right? So now like you can fix it, and then you can not just fix it, you basically converted it. There's another thing you could do though. This one is actually okay. At least like the data was actually considered UTC. And it's because I think the original data had the time zone information as a UTC, or like the original data was captured or recorded as a UTC data. But sometimes what happens is, what if like you have the text data, like let's say CSV or Excel, whatever, what have you, and then the time is assuming the Pacific Standard Time. You punch in like a 2 p.m. whatever, but you didn't put like a PST or Pacific Standard Time information. Then what happens, like when you import, it becomes, the system consider that as UTC. So that means even though when you're looking at here the UTC, but this might be actually not the UTC time. This is actually the PST time. And then like you start doing all sorts of calculation or analysis, and then it gets messed up. Then in that case, we are not talking about conversion, because if you convert, this is supposed to be PST, and you convert from, but it says UTC, and you convert from UTC to PST, then you actually make the things even worse. So you want to actually fix it. And that's actually different from the conversion. So you wanted to fix it. Same thing, go to the menu, and it says fixed time zone. And then this is instead of with_TZ, instead of force_TZ. And when you use this function, then you basically what is going to happen is it's not going to do the conversion. It just change this to the PST. Okay, so that's some difference. And another thing, though, I think this is like the last piece. So let's say like I have also the Tokyo data. Okay. And then the same thing, this Tokyo, the data was actually recorded as UTC, which is okay. So I don't have to fix it. But I want to see in the Tokyo's time zone because I don't want to see this data as, again, line chart. If I extract hour and then temperature, and then I don't want to see 5 o'clock as the highest temperature of the day. That's completely wrong. So I'm going to do the same thing, right? So I'm going to just copy the step, or I can actually do that too, but I'm just sometimes lazy. So I'm going to just copy the step and then paste it here. But if I paste it, it's a PSD. I don't want to do the PSD. Instead, I want to select the, is in Japan here? Okay, perfect. And then change it to Japan standard type, a standard time. Then if I go to the chart, change the PM, and then like I get about pretty right, like a 2 p.m. is the highest. So now like I want to compare San Francisco and Tokyo time together in the same chart. Then what I'm going to do is like I can go to this either way, get back to the San Francisco temperature data. Then I can click on this add button. This is to add another wrangling step. And then there's something called merge. Merge is to bring another data frame and adding those data as rows. So you get extra rows. Join is to bring the columns from another data frame and then join. And then you ended up getting not increasing the rows, but then you get extra columns from the target data frame. So I want to use like a merge, right? Another set of rows. And then so I'm going to select here, and there's a Tokyo here. Where's our Tokyo? And I click run button. And then like before merge, I had 315. Now like after the merge, we get like 394. And it's I think the Tokyo row is actually only the 78,000. So that's why like it didn't become double, but it's actually increased. But one thing I want you to notice here is that like the time zone becomes UTC back again. So before I thought we did a PSD, and then now like a UTC. The reason that of this is because SF4 has PSD and then Tokyo has JST, and you can't have like a different time zone data in a single column in the same data frame. So that's why like it automatically behind the scene change it back to UTC and then join them together. But then like we actually, if I go here and then go to the chart and then move the pen to the last step and then change the color to the station, and you get something kind of weird because now like this RJTT is a Tokyo, and then SFO is orange. And then basically we are seeing like we can't really compare apple and apple here, right? Because you use a different time zone. I mean, like it's actually using the same time as the UTC, but they're not the local time zone. So we want to fix it. But then what we want to do here is that instead of like using this single column, like why don't we just create a column called hour, right? So like before the merge, I'm going to go back to the previous step. And then this is where we want to do the extract. So from this, when the data is PSD, I want to extract the hour information at this point. And I'm going to call it just like a hour. Let's call it local hour or something. Local hour. And then here is a local hour data. And once I have this, then like if I go to the next step, then I don't have to worry about the time zone because this hour is sort of like kind of a numeric with a character in a way. But the only thing though is that what we didn't do is the Tokyo also, like I have to extract to create that new column. So they do the same thing. So extract, hour information, and then make sure the same column name, local hour. So I have like extra column, and then go back to the San Francisco data frame, and make sure that here doesn't have an NA Looks okay. And then go to the chart. And now instead of using this valid, because this valid data, valid column using the UTC, but instead like we want to use this local hour. And then now when you look here, it's both of them, San Francisco and Tokyo. This is basically the kind of local hour. So, both of them basically highest temperature is 2 p.m. of the day. So now, like finally, like we are comparing apple and apple, right? And then, like what we can do is, for example, using a repeat by. Let's say here's like we can assign it use valid, and then let's see like if this relationship is always the same. So like let's say month to month. I'm going to change that to let's say extract the months from here. So let's say throughout the year, how they change San Francisco and Tokyo temperature. And I'm going to change that to repeat by selection to be maybe like a 4 columns and then fit all the charts in the same view. Okay, this is easier to see. So here. So now like we can see from January to about like March, actually San Francisco temperature is warmer than Tokyo. But then in the summertime, the Tokyo temperature is higher than San Francisco. And then like later, going to the winter, and then San Francisco temperatures start coming up relatively than the Tokyo. So now like we can compare, between those two cities for the temperature because we take care of the time zone things. Okay, I think that's it for the today's stuff. But last not the least, I want to actually give a credit. So all the functions we've been using mostly coming from this package called Rubridate. This is like our package to make the data wrangling with date and time easier and more fun. So if you want to know more detail about all the things you can do with this area of the functions, and you go to rubridate.tidyverse.org. And there are even like a cheat sheet. I'm going to send you the link to the cheat sheet later as well. But you can find a lot of valuable information. And these folks are the main authors, but also there are other contributors contributed to this package. So, I recommend you take a look. Okay, and in the future seminars, next week, we are planning to do data wrangling working with the text data. Today, we focus on date and time, but also the text data has a lot of things you can do with it as well. So I want to cover that next week. And then in the future, we are planning for other topics, but also we are interested in hearing what you are interested in or what you like us to cover. So please contact us or contact me. And we always appreciate any feedback. Okay, so with that, if you have any questions, please contact me. You can reach out to me by email, Twitter, and also our information we also provide a training and also online seminar. We have the URL here as well. Okay, with that, if you happen to have any question, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna stop the recording here first. And then how to stop this recording thing here. Oops. Here we go.